They asked her, do you want to put your products in stores, like a Target? No, she does not. Because how is she going to hide the numbers if she involves a third party? How can she keep doing her little ploy of, we restocked 10x and you wouldn't believe it, but we sold out in 40 minutes instead of 30 minutes. Can you believe it? Imagine how if she stocked a Target, her stuff would sit on the shelves. How much would you be unconvinced to buy that tiny little jar of jam if you could actually hold it and see how little you're actually getting for your $14? The spread, sorry, not the jam. How much would you not want that sorry tin of teas? Especially when you could just reach right over down the aisle and get the same exact tea from the label that made her tea, and for cheaper. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. Today we've got so many things to talk about. We're going to start with Meghan. We always got to start out with Meghan. Not as long as last time, but we have to cover our Meghan news. Apparently, she was here in the great city of Washington, D.C. I saw on her reels, I was like, she was on my territory. But the air around here is pretty spiritually dark, so it was hard to sense a seismic shift when the she-devil showed up because it's already pretty bleak. But she came and she was doing an interview with Fortune magazine. Another time for her to use all her stupid buzzwords. Okay. I listened to the whole thing and it was mind-numbing. But we'll get to that. Because the first thing we have to talk about is the fact that she seems to be everywhere all at the same time. She's gone through one of her manic episodes where she's just bleeping everywhere. And she does this thing where you won't see her for a while, and then suddenly she's just doing interviews and showing up at random places. And she does this from time to time, where she just can't just be a sort of steady, slow drip. It's always got to be a bucket of cold ice water on your head. Well, she was doing her cold ice water rounds. And she, of course, had been to Fashion Week in Paris. And as has come out, everyone is now saying, oh, well, Meghan invited herself. And there'd been some speculation that she had legitimately been asked to the show. But no, she asked herself. Now, this is where I feel like we tend to make mountains out of molehills. Because according to the new director of Balenciaga, she did technically invite herself. But they've been friends for a while. He said they've been texting each other for several years now. And she texted him and said, I'd love to come to your new show. And then he sends her clothes to wear to the new show. And I don't think that's the same thing as acting as though she jumped out of the dark into the face of someone who didn't even know her to demand admittance to his fashion show. But that's the way everybody tells the tale, and I just don't think that that is technically true. Technically, she invited herself when she said, I would like to come, and technically he allowed it when he sent her clothes from the new fashion line. So it seems like unnecessary shade being thrown at Meghan when, as I've said many's the time, there's plenty to say about Meghan. We don't have to pick apart the carcass of her life like a couple of vultures. The things I'd love to talk about rather than whether she was or was not invited to Balenciaga show through formal channels, is that she and Harry were set to receive an award in New York City about all the work they've done for the mentally ill. And the award was given because Harry and Meghan are always crying and wiping their eyes about how it's just so unfair because people are mean online and stuff, and we can't let this happen to our kids. Well, then don't let them have a phone. Pure and simple. There we go. But anyway, this completely insignificant award was given to Harry and Meghan. And what I have to say is, here in America, we have a real mental health crisis going on. But if Harry and Meghan are the poster children for our salvation, I believe all is lost. It's so inexplicable that the two of them would receive this award when anybody who's plugged in at all to the conversation around them could give 10 to 15 reasons why they're the last people who should have received this award. But these elite awards that are handed out so that the celebrities can scratch each other's backs have long since been useless and really carry no weight or worth. We've known that. But it seems like the people who are giving out the award would at least try to legitimize what they're doing. We know it's all fraud and fiction and foolishness. But it just seems to me like the people giving out the award wouldn't want to admit that so obviously. It's almost like they know it's stupid and they're going to let you know they know it. So they pick the least qualified couple, the one who would get the most backlash upon receiving it. So they could be like, yeah, I know. We weren't into this either. This is like the equivalency of when the astronauts came back from the moon landing and their demeanor was as follows.
What is the meaning of this to all of us? You want to try that?
After you.
And it's sort of like, if you had just come back from the moon landing, can you imagine being less enthusiastic? It's like they're trying to tell us something. Well, that's how I feel with Meghan and Harry receiving this award. It's almost like the people giving out the award are trying to tell us something. Well, we were all compelled to make commentary on the illegitimacy of the award. The thing that really caught our attention was how unhappy Harry was. Now, we've been seeing Harry completely underwhelmed by Meghan's presence. That is a shift from his previous behavior, where he wanted us all to sing, all hail King Meghan. He all but wanted us to fall to our faces in front of her. He just couldn't understand why the whole world didn't want to lay down at her feet and praise and worship her. Well, it seems that he's kind of catching on that she's the literal worst. And the last couple of times we've seen him, he is fighting the urge to backhand her away from himself. We saw when he was at Kevin Costner's charity event where Meghan was supposed to be in the background. Like, for one blessed day, could your husband just sort of do his thing? Because really, the fight about online spaces and the bullying is like his pet project in her name. Because she's the one getting bullied more than he is. And it seems like he wants to fight that to like defend her honor. But it's kind of his thing. She's busy making jams and he's over there pretending he can change the world. One boring conversation after another. But he was giving out this award at this event, or receiving the award. I can't remember what it was, but it was his moment. And as he's over there trying to say his clumsy words, let him gather his thoughts. He's only got a couple of brain cells with which to produce this next few statements. Let him just not be distracted. Meghan comes sliding out of the background where she'd been waiting back like a spider. And she shows up behind him as though she's creeping up to stab him. And he turns around just in time and is almost visibly shocked to see her there. How can he be? All she's ever tried to do is infiltrate his spaces and take over where he was supposed to be in charge. But she attempts to kind of take the microphone and kind of like join in with him on whatever it is he's doing. It's very weird because nobody gave her permission to be there in the first place. So it's like, if you were supposed to be here, you would have been called up together. Why is it so hard for you to stay back in the wings? Why is it so hard for you to, for once, just play the supportive role? He's done that for you over and over, as you've said many times in interviews, that Harry's just there to support everything you do. So you can't just let him do his thing. No. She keeps trying to take the microphone, keeps trying to insert herself, and he, pretty much stonewalls her, and she skulks back to backstage in one of the most awkward exchanges of all time. Now, you'll recall old Harry would have allowed her to stay, because you'll remember this footage from the polo match when she's over there trying to take the gifts and prizes as though she too had had a victory with her polo pony. And he allowed it. I don't think the Harry of today would have allowed it. Harry of old was all like,
"Oh, Meghan, this is so exciting. I know she didn't really ride, but she was with me in spirit. We were riding together. She was in my heart,
And the Harry today is like,
"Oh, good Lord, here comes the old battle axe. Here she comes, her bony ankles clacking. God, she's going to take the microphone, is she? Well, I'm not going to let it happen this time. No, sirree, Bob. It's over now, isn't it?"
So I'm glad that he seems to be growing some kind of a backbone, but I think the thing that's bothersome to me is he's swinging from one extreme to the other. It's like, before it was, I'm going to basically wear her like a fur coat. I just love her so much. I want her draped all over me. And now it's kind of awkward how he keeps brushing her off. And it's like, well, you've got to decide what you want, man. Like, this is kind of embarrassing that you won't take her hand, or you'll fight her on it. Like, she'll try to take his hand and he'll be grabbing for anything to not get her hand, but she eventually wins. It never looks happy. He's always very unsmiling. He's just constantly appearing to be in distress in public. But it makes it very awkward. If you're going to publicly look so miserable, then privately do something about it. But don't come out being all mopey and like, "She won't get off of me. She literally will not stop clutching at me. Get off." But it's like, do something about it then. what made it even weirder was that publicly he seemed so uncomfortable. He seemed distressed. He seemed frustrated. He seemed unhappy. But then Meghan posted a video of them getting ready for the award, and he's talking to her and they're laughing about something, and it seems like a genuine moment. Now, she doesn't seem genuine because she's always fake cackling, but he seemed like really at ease with her in a way that we never saw him show in public. And it made his weird coldness towards her in public seem even stranger. Like if I were her, I would feel like, how come when we're together and it's just the two of us, we seem to get on, but then when we go in public, you seem like you're sort of brushing me off and you're kind of cold and you can't be bothered to like make a smile. Now, a person could interpret this and just say he's incredibly awkward. Like, he just feels socially awkward about things and he doesn't really know what to say, and he's not a super well-spoken person, and he tends to sort of stutter and stumble over himself when given the opportunity to speak. So it could be that he isn't opposed to Meghan. It's that he's opposed to the situation. And because he's been criticized so much for always holding her hand, and it sort of contributes to his general weakness, he's not wanting to appear weak, so he doesn't want to look like he's clutching onto her as a security blanket. So there's a part of me that is disposed to saying, I don't think that everyone's interpretation of him as, finally having enough of it and wanting to break up with her is necessarily accurate. When we see him with her in a personal setting, he seems very relaxed and like genuinely comfortable with her. I think he just doesn't like being in public. I think he doesn't know how to react to the criticisms of the public. And I think that's what he doesn't like. Meghan was never somebody that was worthy of his attention. His family could see it immediately. It's not like Meghan was an amazing person before and now she's turned into an ice queen. She was always an argumentative person. She was always looking for it to be her own way. And back in the day, Harry would be like, what Meghan wants, Meghan's gonna get. I don't necessarily believe he stopped saying that or believing it. I think he just doesn't want to be publicly criticized. And he doesn't know how to exist with Meghan in public without receiving criticism. I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing his insecurity, not his draining love and affection. We want him to wake up and realize that she's crazy, but he bought into the delusion a long time ago. And I believe that she's very good at manipulating people. We saw how she tries to manipulate facts with her conversation that she had at Fortune magazine. It was one of the most boring conversations I've ever heard. And Meghan tends to do that. It's like, here we have a person who has an incredibly interesting life, who truly, if she decided to tell us from start to finish what her life was really like, it would be spellbinding. I firmly believe that nobody is boring, if they'll be honest. And if you are bored listening to somebody tell about their life, it's because they aren't telling you the truth. And if she would tell us the truth about her life, it would be spellbinding. Absolutely spellbinding. Even if you didn't agree with everything that she'd done, it would be very interesting. But she always has these conversations with these business settings, and she likes to consider herself an entrepreneur, which I suppose in some context she is. No one's going to say she doesn't have businesses and that she doesn't try to have business sense. But the problem is that she wants to find herself well established in an area that she is not established in. She's had her as ever business for maybe a year and a half publicly, and yet she wants to have the same standing as other female founders who have been in the space a lot longer. And so she compensates for the lack of time spent in that field with as much jargon as she can pack into 30 seconds. And so she was just saying a lot of things that were just overwhelmingly annoying because she uses all kinds of acronyms and words, buzzwords and all kinds of things because that's what she believes will show that she has experience. But we all are really aware of how shystery and fraudish that is, and so it convinces no one that she knows what she's doing. Specifically because all of her tricks of the trade, like stocking inadequate amounts of jam and dry biscuits and then saying that you sold out in 30 minutes, is a trick that so many people have used. That's not a metric for your success, so you using all the right words and having these sort of shadowy examples of success just isn't going to work for us. We're too smart now, right? But anyway, she gets on to this podcast, back to what I was saying earlier, that she's just very manipulative and will spin facts for whatever audience she thinks will buy it. She said that she has turned off the comments on her social media because she wants to really make a beautiful experience for all of her many, 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 many followers who love her and who are just really encouraging and who love her so much. And there's just some really loud naysayers out there who just are going to ruin that experience for everybody. And so she's turned off the comments because the experience needs to be really beautiful for the people who support her. And there's so many of those people who support her that she wanted to kind of curate their experience so it would just be better for them.
Certain things that I've done just for my own self-preservation, but also that I've applied to the brand and for the people that are incredibly supportive. I know, the question can be around naysayers, but if you really see the groundswell of support that surrounds the brand and me, that's what I feel the most and that's what I appreciate. But by design, I also recognize that a lot of those people aren't going to my page to see negativity. And so not just protecting myself or the people that work with me, but also the supporters. So I don't have the comment section on.
And it's like, that sounds really nice, but we all know that's not true. Now I'm not saying there's no truth to it, because, you don't want to sour the people who really like you. You don't want them to read a whole bunch of terrible things about you and then join the mob against you. So I'm sure that there is absolutely truth to the fact that she didn't want the people who like her to see a bunch of negative things. But I don't think it's because she was afraid that it would discourage them. I think it was because it discourages her and she didn't want to see it, And quite frankly, if I was receiving the backlash so consistently over every single thing I did, I wouldn't really want to have the comments on either. I don't blame her for that, but I don't think she needs to spin it like, I care so much about the people that I love that, I just want to bring them joy, and I care so much about the little details that I didn't want the little detail of negative feedback about something they love to affect their day. Like, that's not true. What she fails to do so dramatically in her public relations is that she has zero ability to be authentic. And if she could authentically own the fact that I am very well aware that people don't like me, and I don't think that it's fair that they say all these negative things about me, but I just didn't want to live with the criticism. So I turned it off. It's my social media. I don't feel like getting screeched at every day when I open my page. It brought me down. And so I just turned it off. That's her prerogative. So say that, And I just truly think that if she would finally start interacting with people in real ways, not the fake real ways that she does with her stupid baby mama dance, that's not relatability. That's not what we want. We don't need to see you dancing like a fool for us to think that you can be relatable. That's so beyond the pale of what most people would do and post on their... She's got no cool. She's got no ability to sit in the middle. It's either crazy baby mama videos or sitting there on a panel using a bunch of terminology nobody understands. Do you have any idea what the middle is like? Anyway. She said a lot of other things in this conversation that were ridiculous. They asked her, do you want to put your products in stores, like a Target or something, just so it's easier for people to access? And I'm thinking, no, she does not. Because how is she going to hide the numbers if she involves a third party? How can she keep doing her little ploy of, we restocked 10x and you wouldn't believe it, but we sold out in 40 minutes instead of 30 minutes. Can you believe it? It's like, Meghan, don't act like the reason that you aren't willing to do a big stock in a big box store is because you want to make sure that this is a bespoke experience. It's not because you want a bespoke experience. It's because you can't have more people looking at the books. You can't have more people knowing how much people don't want this. Imagine how if she stocked a Target, her stuff would sit on the shelves. How much do you not want to buy the shortbread cookie mix if you saw it in person? You know what I mean? There's something about putting your hands on goods. And she's like, I love for people to have that tactile experience. That is so important. We definitely want to do a retail. We just really wanted it to be a bespoke experience. How much... Or would you be unconvinced to buy that tiny little jar of jam if you could actually hold it and see how little you're actually getting for your $14? The spread, sorry, not the jam. How much would you not want that sorry tin of teas? Especially when you could just reach right over down the aisle and get the same exact tea from the label that made her tea, and for cheaper. I mean, she can't afford for people to touch these products, as much as she likes the tactile and the granular. Other thing that I thought was just really egregious about this entire conversation, apart from the fact that it was so boring, I felt like I had to crawl up out of the grave when we were done. I truly felt that I had been lulled not just to sleep, but into a coma and then into death. But one of the things she said during the conversation, before my mind had become truly numb and I stopped listening, was that she claimed that she had done calligraphy back in her poor college days, back when she was a struggling actress. She'd done calligraphy for celebrity weddings and hotels. And that when she was doing this calligraphy, she didn't want the natural oils of her hand to get on the paper. And so to combat that, she wore a tube sock on her arm so that a tube sock on her hand so that she wouldn't get the natural oils of her hand onto the paper. The way I call bullshit on that. Look, I'm not saying that getting a protective glove isn't a bad idea. But I am telling you that little Miss Nobody with her, little markers that she likes to call calligraphy pens, they are not. That fool tries to tell me that she's going to be doing calligraphy for a celebrity wedding with a tube sock on her hand. The precision necessary to get calligraphy done right could not be done with a tube sock on your hand. It's like, you just are making up bullshit at this point. Also, the time that it would take to build up the clientele worthy of then finally getting celebrity weddings and hotels, it would be years in the making before you could get a celebrity wedding. She wasn't doing it long enough, and it's not good enough. It isn't calligraphy. It is not calligraphy. I've done a couple of weddings in my time, okay? I did 2 weddings when I was in college. It takes a really long time. And I'm just telling you, she wasn't doing multiple celebrity weddings and multiple things for hotels and doing her interviews and working all her side jobs, with her teaching advanced gift wrapping at Paper Source. She got in all of the stories into this horrific interview. She told us all about her odd jobs. She gave us all the same information about what it is to have been a female founder. She doesn't have any new stories about any of her experiences. The only thing we didn't hear was about how when she was 11, she wrote to the company about the dish soap. That's the only story we didn't hear. And everything else was a repeat. She didn't tell us anything new, with the exception of doing calligraphy for celebrity clients and hotels. You did not. It's not possible. It's not possible, especially when you're so janky that you wear a tube sock on your hand. That little element to the story, that little twist to the story was the very thing that was the tell. How do you have the dexterity to do calligraphy with a tube sock on your hand? You liar. You are a liar. Celebrity weddings plus tube sock? No celebrity who can afford to have all of their invitations done by a calligrapher is going to pay somebody who doesn't have the wherewithal to buy an actual glove and uses a tube sock on her hand. That it's not possible. Okay, rant over. We really have to get on to other things. How long did that take me? Oh my gosh, 26 minutes. Oh gosh. Okay, we do have other things to talk about. You guys, this is a really random story, but I have got to talk to you guys about this because I just thought this was so weird. Okay, 2 stories came out this week that I thought I really could have gone through my whole life and not known any of this, but now you have to know about it because I can't bear this burden myself. Heidi Klum decided to post a video on her social media asking if you ladies out there have any hair growing out of your boobs. Okay, that's already a question I don't want answered by anyone. If you are having a situation with that, with some stray hairs or whatever, pluck it and move on and tell no one. Okay, that's the way we deal with that. We don't make videos of said hair. And also, what the hell with the length of the hair coming out of her breast?
Das Haar. Hier ist es an meinem Busen. Da ist es doch. Da ist es. Da ist es.
When was the last time she took a shower? Because I don't know how this could be growing out of your body and you didn't know about it for so long. This is like a hair that is as long as a hair on your head. And she wants to know, hey, girlies, any of you guys got some hairy boobs? I just don't know how it got that long before you finally realized that the thing tickling you in your shirt was actually a hair growing out of your chest and not a hair that got caught in your bra. I just could not even believe this. Okay, but if only that was the only weird hair story we had. No. The Kardashians have decided once again to slam our face in their reality. And Kim has come out with a range of underwear that have all sorts of different pubic hair looks so that you can rock your best 1970s look. Okay, you don't need to buy that. You can get that for free. Just wait a couple of weeks. I think the thing that's crazy to me is like not only the variety and the texture that she is offering here, but the fact that she thinks that anybody would want to buy any one of these.
Dear God. Let me just say that out loud so God knows that we're just alarmed by this.
Explain to me what in the world I would want this for. Now look, you can do however you want to do with your own personal body. I judge not, okay? You do you. If you're with somebody and they like that look, that's great news for you because it's a lot easier in life if it can just go the way God intended. But what am I buying a hairpiece for? I mean, it's like, I know that I love Toupee Queen, but I do not like Merkin Queen. And Kim Kardashian, why are you wanting to be the Merkin Queen? Why are you wanting to do that? Nobody needs that. Nobody needs to buy that. That's what's so crazy. Like, why would you spend the money for this horrific looking roadkill when you could just wait literally a couple weeks and that whole thing for free? For free. Are people wanting to experience different colors and looks? Are we wanting to buy a different color carpet? I mean, I don't know what's going on here. But to me, like literally nothing has ever made less sense to me than coming out with a line of this. I mean, they have really stretched themselves over there at Skims. You can only do so much with shapewear. And I thought the crazy chin thing was wild. Although the other day at Carpool, I passed a mom who was wearing one of these in the car. But, we all laughed about the chin strap. Like, okay, we're really stretching it over there. And they were basically like, hold my beer. I have multiple colored Merkins. Which one do you want? I mean, what are they going to do next? I ask you. I shudder to think where they go next. Shudder to think. But, Kim was everywhere, because she has just got this thing going with Nike. So Skims and Nike are teaming up. So I guess that's why she was on Call Her Daddy. I don't get Call Her Daddy. I don't get that podcast, you guys. I had my brother over last night, and he knows about all the things. And he is just like a wealth of knowledge on all things. And so I'm like, can you explain to me the Call Her Daddy podcast? Like, how did that happen? So he like breaks it down for me. Like, where did you come from? And all of this stuff. So he tells me the whole story. It still didn't really make sense to me. Like, why is she so well known? Because, I think she's pretty. My brother did not think she was pretty, but I think he's crazy. I think that Alex Cooper is really pretty. And, she certainly has a certain look to her. She's like very Gen Z, but, whatever. I can see that people might watch the show because she's pretty, and sometimes people are drawn into that. There doesn't have to be a lot of substance there, but she's grating as a host. Can we agree on that? And then the conversations that she's having with these women are some of them so degrading and gross. I mean, when she had Cardi B on, I was like, how was this allowed online? Like, I feel like I would have had to go to the darkest recesses of the internet to hear some of the conversation that they were having, and it was right there on YouTube. Anyway. Call Her Daddy had Kim Kardashian on. But everyone's talking about this interview, and I listened to the whole thing thinking, okay, this might be interesting. We cover Kim Kardashian a lot, and I don't generally listen to Call Her Daddy podcast unless there's some guest on there that is somebody who's like reoccurring on this show, and I'm like, all right, maybe they say something. But Kim Kardashian is so media trained that she wasn't going to say anything that was actually interesting. Plus, if they do have anything interesting, that needs to be saved for their personal show. So, it was just a lot of... It was just two girls with the same intonation, with a lot of filler talk, but nobody was really saying anything. And so even the highlights from this episode are lowlights compared to other conversations you could have with literally somebody on the street corner waiting for the light to change. She didn't know how much a gallon of milk costs and wasn't really sure how much her glam cost. I mean, everyone was like, can you believe it? Freaking yes, I can. She's a billionaire. When was the last time you think she went to the store and picked up a gallon of milk? $1 million is nothing to her. Her entire business is how she looks. I'm sure she spends well over $1 million with all the surgeries, with all the hair, with all the makeup, with all the tanning. I mean, of course it's well over $1 million. It couldn't be just $1 million. And so people are like, this is crazy. Can you believe it? Yeah, I can. Can you not? The crazier thing is that you are shocked that she doesn't know how much a gallon of milk costs. Why would she? Is she like, let me see the receipt. Better check my bills. No. And then even when she talked about parenting with Kanye, that wasn't going to be explosive. He literally made a documentary of himself screaming at everybody. Okay, so how is she going to pick up and carry on and blow your socks off after we saw him screaming like a child and stamping his feet like a 2-year-old? Okay, so like the most explosive thing she said was just, what do you think it's like co-parenting with Kanye? Alex Cooper has got to learn to like push a little bit on the people who are sitting across from her. She just wants to be their friend. She doesn't really care about them. She agrees with everything they say. It's just supposed to be like this cozy moment because she's always, wandering in her sweats and her socks. She's not looking for this to be hard hitting in any way. And probably most of the people who watch her show, nobody's looking for investigative journalism. But I wish that she's like, I'm going to ask you some really hard questions. And then she does ask questions, but Kim didn't answer any of them. Kim's like, I don't know if I'm going to go there. I'm going to get in trouble anyway. So it's like, well, then why did you even bother to come, Kim? But then also, Alex, rephrase, come up with another way. Can we ask some follow-up questions? Not Alex Cooper. It's just too hard. Meanwhile, speaking about the Kardashians, Kris continues to confound me with how young she looks. And I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were talking about her facelift and just what an incredible facelift it is. And nobody can say that's just lighting, that's just makeup, that's just AI, because we're watching her do these interviews and she's moving all over the place and she's talking, and it's not like there's a chance for a filter to really cover up the reality. So it's an incredible facelift, but the doctor who did it does not want her to talk about him. He isn't a doctor that has any social media. He doesn't have any presence in Hollywood. You have to go to him by referral. To have him just look at you is $5,000. And then the facelift costs like $300,000. But it's big money that was spent on her face by a doctor who is not looking to be well known. You want to talk about a bespoke experience, Meghan Markle. That would be Kris's face surgeon. That guy is delivering some very unique procedures over there. I don't know if they're all legal, quite frankly. But anyway, we can all see Kris has had major work done. Major work. And you know what she's out there trying to tell us has been her secret to youthfulness and the success of keeping her appearance? The sauna. She heard that if you do the sauna every day, it adds like 40% to your life. I'm supposed to believe that you look like you were literally just reborn yesterday because you got a sauna up at the house? Is what I'm seeing on your face supposed to be 40% extra life that was put back into your face because of the sauna? Like, what are you even saying to me, Kris? Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. You had work done, extensive work done. A year ago, she looked 40 years older than she does now. She looks exactly like Kim. You know what I did think was interesting? It was a throwaway line that Kim said on Call Her Daddy. Kim said, yeah, my mom's always trying to copy me. And I'm like, down to your freaking face, Kim. Your mom's crazy. I think Kris is actually crazy. There was a long, drawn-out story on Call Her Daddy about some debacle that the family had over certain gifts that Kim was wanting and that her mom bought for somebody else in the family and had no recollection. It was a long, long story. And only a billionaire could relate. But the story just seemed to highlight, one, Kris is losing it, but then two, how much Kris doesn't really care about Kim and how Kris uses Kim for like, what's the latest? What are you kids into? And then she just copies everything Kim does. Anyway, off of the Kardashians, thank God. Let's talk about some other people who are just a hot mess and having a real hard time of it. All right, Britney and Kevin Federline. We had to talk about it. Kevin Federline has written a new book called You Thought You Knew or something like that. It comes out on Halloween, not surprisingly. It's a horror show. And in this book, he is outlining the fact that Britney is far worse off than you ever realized or knew. And that she was doing crazy things even when they were together. So if she was that crazy then, you can only imagine how crazy she is now. Now, he was, of course, accused of just trying to drum up some financial support because the child support has stopped coming from Britney. Well, how's he going to pay his bills? He's got 6 kids, and he's living in Hawaii, and that ain't no cheap state. So how is he going to make ends meet? He doesn't have a job. So he writes this book. And they did a interview with him on Entertainment Tonight, and the guy interviewing him asked him, you know, people are going to say the reason you wrote this book is because the child support has dried up. Kevin should have been told to anticipate that question because his reaction is so defensive. And he's like, y'all gonna go there? It's not about the money. I mean, I hope it sells like 1 million, but it's not about the money.
Why do this now? Because there's an assumption that you are doing this because the child support ended with Britney.
Really? That you want to go there right away? All right.
Well, then what's it about? You know, you're just really concerned about Britney? I don't know. Now, everyone's coming after Kevin because everyone is saying that he's just like this horrible leech that has just never cared about Britney and he should have been there to protect her and et cetera, et cetera. And he only ever used her, and then once she got too annoying, he just left her high and dry. And Britney's first husband, Jason Alexander, who she was married to for 55 hours, has come out and basically been like, you don't know what you're talking about, man. You should have been there to protect her, and you didn't, you know. And Britney's come out and said that I don't appreciate all the things that he says about me because I am living my life in a very sacred and private way. And it's just very hurtful to me. And one of the reasons that the boys don't like to be around me is because of the disrespect of their father. And I am going to talk about these things because I'm a real woman. And that means I'm going to sound off about it, you know. Meanwhile, posting a plethora of new dancing videos overnight. So it's hard for me to understand how she reconciles her private sacred life that she's been living for 5 years when every time I turn around, she's waving a knife in my face. But some of the claims in Kevin's book were that she was drinking and on cocaine while she was pregnant and while she was breastfeeding the boys, specifically when she was breastfeeding the boys. And that was really upsetting for him because he's like, hello, those are my kids. Can you not breastfeed the kid when you're riddled with cocaine? That's dangerous for the baby. And then he also tells about a time when they were on tour and he didn't know where Britney was. He's looking for her. He walks in on her cheating on him with a female backup dancer. That female backup dancer has since come out, posted pictures of she and Britney together, and has not denied the fact that there was some fooling around going on. Just saying that, you know, no one can ever understand what Britney has gone through. And, you know, if you haven't walked a mile in her shoes, you don't know. Other such claims is when they were going to get married, Kevin found Britney on the phone the night before they were going to get married, and who's she talking to? Justin Timberlake. So he was like, that's a pretty big red flag, but I was so in love with her that I decided that, you know, she said she was trying to close the door and just make sure that it was all over, and I just wanted to believe that.
The night before our wedding, we're at the Fairmont in Santa Monica in one of the bungalows, and I was like, what's wrong? I thought she was talking to her mom on the phone or something, and maybe she was like having doubts, and she told me that she was on the phone with Justin. What the hell is going on, you know?
Then married her and they stayed together for like 3 years. But, you know, she proposed to him. He says he initially said no, then later he came back and said, yeah, sure, we can do it. And he has always seemed rather opportunistic, but his claim now is that Britney is very unwell. And while the conservatorship wasn't ideal in a lot of respect, left to her own devices, it is 10 times worse, he claims, than anything he wrote about in the book. And the picture he writes about Britney in the book is absolute chaos. I mean, chaos, degeneracy, the frightening degradation of the soul. But he claims it's 10 times worse. And he went so far as to be like, no, I'm not going to tell her private stuff or anything because, you know, these are her private details about her life. So I'm not going to tell you what's going on now, but it's 10 times worse than it was in the book. And I'm like, well, I mean, what you wrote about in the book is hella crazy. And it seems to me that you wouldn't try to give some kind of caveat that, like, I'm going to be really generous to her and not give her current personal details. What is left to say? You know, because you told a tale that was real frightening. And these are only the excerpts we're getting, okay? The book, like I said, comes out in October. I pre-ordered it. I don't know if we're going to read it word for word unless that's something you guys would really be interested in. But probably I'll listen to it and then do an episode about, like, what it was all about. It seems like it might be a really good, like, let's get into this kind of book, but I don't know. It's hard for me to know what you guys want to listen to because sometimes I feel like people get really into a royal book at the beginning and then kind of get tired of it, which I understand. And then celebrity books that I think people are going to be really interested in don't usually take off on this channel. So probably I'll just listen to it and tell you guys about it. But if you have strong feelings about wanting to hear the whole thing, sound off in the comments and we'll talk about it. My final little thing to talk about. It's a little bit of old news, but I didn't get a chance to talk about it. Hilaria Baldwin did not make it on Dancing with the Stars, and her reaction is priceless.
I opened my heart, and now it's broken again.
The thing that surprises me so much about her reaction is that it is so over the top for not making it through a celebrity dancing show. Your husband murdered somebody, allegedly by accident. And it was like, well, we're just going to get through this, you know. I'm very, very upset that it has happened, but we're going to get through this, you know. And it was just like stiff upper lip, you know. I'm just going to stand by my man. You know, we got all these babies. We just have to love on him and get him through this. She loses Dancing with the Stars, and you would have thought that somebody dug up her grandparents and lit them on fire in front of her. Like, she is so horrified, so upset, so unable to carry on. You can see her dancing partner is dying to laugh right in her face.
I closed the door and danced a long time ago. And opening it up has been painful.
Bruh.
Like, he is so amused by all of this and also can't even take it. Like, I think he was really happy they lost because I think he couldn't take her. Now, look, I didn't watch all the episodes. I know there's controversy about her being on the show in the first place because people are like, she has a dancing background. And this is supposed to be people who don't know what they're doing paired with somebody who does know what they're doing. So you already have a leg up. So she wanted everyone to believe, you know, at the end of this, that she lost not because she was the worst one, but because everyone had been bullying her this entire time. And she had really had to struggle against the naysayers. And now she lost, and it's because the bullies always win. And she's so tired of living in a world where the bullies always win, and her heart is broken, and she'll never be able to pick up 1,000 pieces that it's been shattered into. And it's just like, lady, you got like 25,000 kids at home. You know, I'm pretty sure that you've had hard things happen before. Again, your husband literally shot someone and killed them on set. But this is what she's crying over. It was the Seinfeld episode where Jerry's dating the girl who never cries about anything, and then her hot dog falls on the floor and she bursts into tears. Hilaria losing Dancing with the Stars was the hot dog that fell on the floor for her. Meanwhile, Alec Baldwin's like literally crashing out. Can anyone in that family do anything right? I ask you. Let me just tell you this much right now. The world is full of really hard things, but can we just like take a moment to thank the Lord that we are not Hilaria Baldwin falling apart over Dancing with the Stars, nor are we Alec Baldwin crashing right into a tree, and we've been caught with the dash cam of the local garbage truck. Like, the fact that that was their week, I feel like God has just filled my cup to overflowing with blessings. That is not my life right now. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I will see you guys next week on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. As always, find some time to put your phone away, get outside, go do something with the family, take yourself a little Sabbath rest, recharge, get ready for the week, and I'll see you then. Bye.